everybody. It's Hal Raines, co-host of Artful TV with my great co-host friend, Aileen Imperatrice, and our guest artist for the day. Hey! And our guest artist for the day, Ren Lee. That being said, let's go right to Eileen's video.
Actually, it's not a video. We're just showing images. Today, I got some art pieces, 5 different types of art that are part of my series from Human Nature I did in 2014. And a little introduction to it first. I did these pieces as my husband and I were preparing for his kidney transplant. And so at the time, I had in my head all the thoughts and emotions we were going through in preparation, my concern about his health, and also just the emotions of everything we were doing to prepare for such a major surgery. So this first piece is called Into This House We're Born, and you see a brain and its stem attached to a withered branch and in potted area. And this was really talking about how we can't choose what is given to us in our lives, especially health-wise. There's a lot of things that come up that we have no control over, and we learn that we just have to deal with things as they come along. So it's a matter of accepting what our realities are and being able to weather the storm through it and work to do our best to keep our health as good as it can possibly be. So this was dealing with all of that feeling. And you'll notice some of the pieces, I have very detailed areas of the specific organs of the body, and then the background is more abstract. And there's a reason for that, and that's because at the time, my focus was so much on maintaining the health of ourselves, because I was going to be donating and he was going to be receiving a kidney, that the searing focus was on each organ of the body. And that's why I decided to do this series where the focus subject is always a different organ of the body. But the backgrounds remained more abstract because that's how I felt at the time. So this piece is called Nothing Left to Do But Run. And again, it's more of the feeling of just being anxious about the whole situation and preparing as much as we could. You see a set of lungs as they're waiting there in the sky, I guess, as with the background of the endless road and the greenery all around it, hoping for better things and that new life will come from this transplant surgery. So it was all a matter of trying to interpret whatever I'm going through at the time, and then with my husband as well, trying to stay focused on the positive. And the next piece you'll see, it's The Killer Awoke Before Dawn, and you see a heart pulled out of a body. It's attached loosely with a bit of a line, a half image of ribs. And again, the background being very surreal, very abstract, but the focus on the heart and the ribs and just feeling outside of myself and the emotions that come with everything that you do when you're preparing for major surgery, whether you know you'll make it through or not. That was the one thing that we were reminded of constantly, of course, in all of the paperwork that you fill out, that you could die on the surgery table and that the procedure itself is not a guarantee. But of course, that was the best we could do at the time. And so we went forward. And with each of these pieces, it just gave me a chance to express those frustrations and emotions in a way that allows me to release them so I can continue to focus on what we needed to do to prepare. So the next piece you see, it's, I forgot the name of it right now. Anyway, ladder, and with everything, oh, I know, its voices will signal they're tired end. And the rough seas underneath it, of course, and trying to raise above it. The focus on this particular piece I chose to be with throat, and especially with the title, Voices Will Signal the Tired End. There was so much that I had questions about, of course, as we were going through the process. And it was important to realize that I needed to still be strong enough to remember to ask those questions so that I wouldn't be in the dark, be prepared for what I needed to do and what I had to do. And so even though very exhausting and very tiring to go through everything and all the tests and everything we had to go through, I knew I needed to speak up. I needed to remember to be the advocate for both of us as we were going through this whole process. And then the next piece is the kidney itself. And this piece is, we had some good times, but it's both of my husband and myself, because I was giving up and he was receiving one. Now, the interesting thing that happened with us is that although I was his match, we had, previous to finding information, found out about a program that's the paired exchange, and it allows you, as long as you're willing to be a living donor, even if you're not a match person you're intending to donate for, you can still be put into a larger pool, and then they match your intended recipient with a better match. And so in our case, even though I was a match for Tony, we actually found out just a few weeks before the surgery that they were able to find a match that was a little bit closer than mine and would mean less rejection possibility. So for me, that was the most important thing. And so during that time, we were, of course, taking care as best we could of our own health. I was trying to make sure my kidney would stay in good health for it to be out and given to someone else. And then Tony was trying to do the best to take care of the remaining two that he had that were failing. And then, of course, once he got the new kidney, then to make sure to nest and take care of it so that it would last as long as possible. He's still doing well with it to this day, 3 years later, so we're hoping that stays that way and he lives a good long life on this new kidney that he has. And the other two that remain in his body have just withered away and are probably the size of grapes at this point and not really doing anything. So anyway, it's all just a part of the process that we went through in preparing for the kidney transplant. And it was amazing to go through that whole thing, and especially to be able to be a participant and a donor. I count that as one of the major accomplishments in my life, to be able to donate a kidney. And even though I just recently now went through cancer, which was not related to that at all, I still realize that no matter what happens from this point on in my life, I at least was able to do that one positive thing. So I'm really grateful for that. Okay, well, that was my series, Human Nature, 5 pieces from the series. I have a lot more pieces, and certainly now I'd love to hear about what you're doing, Hal, so let's see your video.
Oh, okay, so we'll just take a look at that, and it's about me and pottery. That's pretty much it, so let's go ahead and take a look. Hi everybody, it's Hal Raines here, one of the co-hosts of Artful TV, and I'm going to cover some decorating techniques today. One of the first things I'm going to use is just an old funky, just seriously old scrubby, just a paintbrush. It's just a simple, almost disposable paintbrush that's really, it's all rusted, okay? And then from there, I'm going to use just a simple wooden rib. You can see basically I'm going to use the tip to decorate around the center, and then I'm going to put another ring outside that, and then at that point I'm going to use the back side of the rib pretty much looking like this, and to use it to do some stippling or some texturing, if you will. Also, as I go around the outside of it, and you'll see I use this particular hook. It's just a simple tool that is pretty common. So when I use the base of this one, and you'll see where I made the center of the flower, if you will. So that being said, let's get started. Okay, so I start off with just a little bit of underglaze and just swish it around, because after all, isn't what we like to do. I like the red, but I like a little bit of other stuff as well. So here goes with the teal. And after you get the teal mixed in, then I'll accent some more, and then I'll bring in some orange a little bit later. Okay, I really like the way that the teal and the red come together to form kind of this fuzzy, hazy purple. You mix it with this orange, it's going to turn it kind of bronzy brown, and that's good too, but eventually I'm going to come right into some white. So there we go. And this is just porcelain that's just been turned into slip, and I'm painting it down. So hang on. Watch what happens. Okay, now that I've got that coat of slip down there, basically I just start bouncing the rib to give it some texture. Then after bouncing with that rubber rib, I use the wooden one just to give myself some lines to define the space a little more clearly. Okay, I definitely like the way everything's looking at this point. Okay, so I've done all that work so far just to get to the point where I could start using the tools. Now, I'm taking this to where I believe it can fulfill everything I wanted it to be when I started. It's got the textures, it's got the center, and I need to reinforce that just a little more. So I'm going to use the butt end of that tool, that circle tool. Yeah, the bottom end of that circle tool is perfect, but you can see that I need to make that center more definite. So I'm going to use the wooden rib just because it holds that solid edge, and it really does give me a nice clean finish. I know this looks a little odd, but it's just basically me using the back side of the rib and changing the direction of the wheel. That's all. Now you'll notice me working inside and then changing back to a clockwise rotation. So that's it. You can do this, believe me. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at, you can leave a message on my studio phone. It's 559-673-6504. You've got to leave a message because I never pick up. I'll listen, but you got to leave a message so I know it's somebody I need to reach out to. Okay, and that's it. See you soon. Today, I'm so excited to introduce one of my favorite ceramic sculptors. Her name is Ren Lee, and if you haven't seen her work before, you're in for a real treat today. So, Ren, welcome.
Hey, Bill. It's great to be here today. This is great fun. So I make a lot of pieces with faces, and for today, Hal came over to the studio and we did a quick construction of how to make a face. So we have a little bit of a video, and I'm not finishing things in the video, but I can show you how I basically construct the elements of the face, and we will then see some more finished pieces later on. Here we are in the studio. These are some of my tools and some of the pieces that I've been working on in the past, but this is a foundation piece that's going to be a sun or a moon face, and I'm going to lay down the elements that start to form the expression. Eyes don't have to be symmetrical. In fact, I think they're a lot more interesting when they're not. So this is putting on eyelids. Here we have a little bit of a brow. This has a texture on it that is maybe a little bit of a sun ray kind of thing. Adding cheeks and skin over the cheek. Chin, here we are adding a chin, making it fit. This guy has teeth, and so the lips are going to be a little bit fuller and the mouth is going to be a little bit open for a little bit of a smile. He still doesn't have a nose, but we're going to take care of that, and that's going to start to make him look a little bit more human. So those are the basic elements. I'm adding eyebrows here. And you can see on the right, you have a little bit more of a face, and on the left, the cheek elements are not on there yet, but you can see a little bit of how this all comes together. And after I did this, I took it all apart. So that's what I do in the studio. Then there's a little bit more in here of other pieces I've been working on. When I'm not doing sculpture, I am experimenting a little bit with painting on clay using glazes and underglazes. This is a piece that you're going to see later that goes into the soda kiln. This is a Morrigan sculpture. She's a Celtic goddess who she's a guide that accompanies the people who die in the battlefield to their afterlife. And then there are some studies for Odin. Odin had a big beard. And after I did these studies, I did a full three-dimensional Odin, which has not been fired yet. But you can see here, he has a raven on his head and one on his shoulder. And traditionally, Odin's two ravens are named Thought and Memory, and they fly all over the world every day and gather information and come back and tell Odin what's going on in the world. And that's how he gets to be the wise one. The raven that goes on the top has to be fired separately because he won't fit in the kiln otherwise. So that's Odin. And he's still waiting to be fired.
I love the texture of his hair, the way you did that.
Yeah.
And so
a lot of great.
These are made in a similar way as Odin's hair. There's several different clay bodies that are folded together, and they make a striation in the clay. So anyway, that's my studio setup. A lot to see.
Well, I'm curious, you mentioned early on while you were working on the foundation piece about how you assemble it all together and then you take it apart. Why is that?
Well, in that particular case, I made a mold of the foundation piece so I can easily make many of those.
Oh, okay.
Typically, and I've already made the mold from that. I did that today. But typically what I do is as I'm putting the pieces on, I'm scoring and slipping and attaching them. But that particular piece was for making that foundation mold.
It's amazing to see the differences in the creatures and some of the large cylinders that you make, even like those tree gods behind you. I have no idea how you do that. Just, I know you layer them, but the way they come out are so just remarkable.
These guys back here, I make them the same way as I was doing the faces on the face on the demo. But I do it vertically, not laying down.
Right.
So,
God.
I can't help myself. I might think I'm going to make something that's just a functional vessel, and the next thing I know, it's got a face.
Well, see, that's what's innately coming from you, and that's why you're an artist, and that's good, because then it gives something so unique from you. I certainly appreciate it. And now, the other thing on the foundation piece that always I like to see, all the little texture, like we were talking about on the other pieces, you can see all the lines and the swirls and everything that you put into that. And I've worked a little bit with clay in my past, and I know how that is to do, and then to make sure that you don't ruin it when you're transferring and moving pieces and assembling them together. How are you making sure then that those pieces, for anyone who has never worked with clay before, how do you make sure that you do not damage those wonderful textures that you've built into the layers as you're assembling?
Well, it's really easy to mess it up. So I would say if somebody's just getting started, you have to do it over and over and over again to kind of get the hang of how to hold it, how dry does it need to be, how hard can you press on it to attach it to the piece that you're working on. But the thing is, clay is just mud. And if you screw it up, you can mash it back together and do it over again. You can just keep doing it until you get it the way you want it. And it's a wonderful thing because, even a person with a lot of experience is going to do things on a regular basis that, they just don't like. And so you just change it.
Right. Well, one of the things we've talked about at length on this show before is about the flexibility that artists have to have while they're working, because you can have the greatest idea going in and it just might not pan out as you're doing it, or you might find something evolves that is even better, and so you just have to be flexible with your own process. Do you find that
that's exactly
often
right
in your work?
Yeah, if you go into ceramics thinking you know exactly what you're going to do, and exactly how it's going to look when you're done, you are always going to be surprised.
And that is true.
I find the same thing with painting.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how different pieces look going in, like the raccoons. I think those are raccoons, aren't they, that you painted on the plates? Okay, so when you look at those going in as greenware, and then when they come out on the other side, where they've been fired and they go through that magic that happens in the soda kiln.
So the way that these things get from greenware, just mud, and become a ceramic piece is we have to fire them. And last weekend, we did a beautiful soda firing out in the middle of an almond orchard down in Layton. And you start by taking all your greenware and sorting it by height so that you can get an efficient stack in your kiln. And you can see here all of the stuff is laid out so we know what we have and how many shelves it's going to take, and make sure that we don't stack it backwards or wrong or whatever. We have to have little bits of wadding. It's a composition that doesn't melt in the kiln to keep all the pieces from becoming glazed to the kiln shelf. So we have to put little wads of wadding under everything. Otherwise, when we introduce the soda, it turns into glass and everything would fuse together. So there's two stacks. There's a stack on the back shelf stack, and then there's another stack on the front shelf stack. And the last things that are going in to this kiln are the two very large busts that you saw in the last video. One is a green man, and one is the Morrigan. But first we're going to put some tall pieces on the back of the top stack, and there's about a half an inch clearance between those tall pieces in the back and the ceiling and back wall of the kiln. You want to have enough room for the atmosphere to move around, but you want to make sure that you get as much as possible in there. And you can see these two faces, these two busts, are right there front and center. So that was, thanks for shooting that, Hal. It was a fun day.
Oh,
that's amazing.
It was so much fun to watch it. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying that was amazing to see how much you pack in there.
Oh yeah. It's a particular obsession of mine. I'm a little OCD, and I hate to have anything left out, and I'll pack and repack until I've got it figured out. But the soda process is a lot of fun. The pieces that I'm showing you here are soda-fired pieces, and you can see different colors on this piece. It's a wall piece. It's kind of small. There's room in the head for you to put a little flower or a feather or something. These are called wisdom keepers. This is a bust that I fired the last time we did a soda firing. This one's called Floor. She's a dryad, a wood nymph, and she's got vines all over and a couple of bluebirds that are hanging out with her in this thing. She's about 16 inches tall. This is a weir tree. Another example of a face. I love this guy's face. He's a mid-fire, unglazed piece. He's never going to be anything different, but I just particularly like the way that this face turned out. And there are several weir trees. This one also came from the soda kiln last spring, called Radiant Sun. It's about 12 inches in diameter. The color on here, you can see the little tips of the sun's rays are all looking a little bit of toastiness. That's a function of the soda kiln. The soda goes into the kiln when it's 1800, 2000, 2200 degrees, and it vaporizes in the kiln and precipitates onto the most bumpy or protruding parts of the ceramics. And so all those little burnt edges are from soda ash precipitating onto the piece. And I just love this piece. And then this is my green man. And I was really worried about getting him through the soda firing and having him still be green, because a lot of green glazes are made with copper, and when you put copper in a reduction environment, which is what the soda kiln is, a lot of times you get red, because when copper reduces, it becomes red. And so I didn't want him to be red man, I wanted him to be green man.
I really appreciate, Ren, you coming on today and sharing with us your beautiful work and getting to talk to you about things. This is wonderful. So, and thanks to Hal, my co-host, for sharing more of his video again of he does. I really hope that all of you check into our next episode again. And thank you for visiting with us at Artful TV. We'll see you again.